I absolutely love music, and really, I'm a fan of all different types of genres. Sometimes it's taken me a while to fall in love with different types of genre, one of those being country. It took a while, but I got there. Uh, but man, music is just a very amazing thing. It's a very powerful thing. What some of you might not know, when I was in high school, I was yeah, that. When I was in high school, I was in a band. You might be wondering, well, Stuart, what did you play? Were you a drummer? No. Were you a guitar player? No. A bass? No. I played the sexy instrument. I played the trombone. Did I mention I was in the high school band? But no, really. So I was in the high school band, and I absolutely loved it. Every aspect of it. I loved jazz band. I loved concert band. I loved marching band. I thought it was a lot of fun. I can go toe to toe with the best of them when it comes to nerding out on band conversation. But music is one of those things that it's very powerful because it hits us on a very emotional level. In fact, the way that I tell people, there's a really clear way for you to know when I'm like happy, like truly, truly happy. I'm usually listening to jazz music. I love jazz music. And so when I'm in a really good mood, jazz tends to be where I go to. On the reverse side of that, when I'm in a really bad mood, you can also tell because I tend to listen to very dark classical music, primarily Russian composers. Why? I don't know. Probably has something to do like the heavy drums and the heavy low brass instrumentation that is in there. So if you ever come across me and you're like, oh, what are you listening to? It's just like bum 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 bum, run. Just it's not a good day for me. But often when we think about music, we think about the sound that we hear, just the different instrumentation voices that you hear, the vocal sounds, just the drums, the percussion, everything that's taking place. We think of the sound. But the one thing that we never really think about when it comes to music is we don't think about the rest that happens. And the rest is very important. The rest is actually what allows certain instrumentation to shine through the noise of everything else, whether that's being able to hear the low brass instrumentation versus the woodwinds, or sometimes it's a moment for the music to breathe in order to establish the emotion that the composer was trying to convey as they were writing it. So we don't think about how important the rest is, and we think that the rest isn't part of the music, but actually the rest that the composer writes in is just as important as the notes that were written down. What's fascinating is we just listened to one of the greatest composed pieces of all time, Igor Stravinsky's Firebird Suite. And in there, Stravinsky writes a lot towards the low brass instrumentation, and he writes a lot to the percussion. But what you probably didn't notice, because you're paying more attention to the conductor who's got his crazy eyes and he's going, wild crazy in everything that he's doing, is you probably didn't notice the strategic place rests within the music in order for the emotion to come across, in order for the music that you were just listening to have a life. The rest is important. It's strategic. So what I want to do as we really kick off our morning today is I actually want you to watch the video again. And maybe this time, close your eyes and listen for what is it that you hear. What instrumentation does stand out to you? Is there moments where the music cuts out completely? Is there moments where only one instrumentation is playing? So I want you to just listen to it again and see what stands out to you. So we go ahead and play the video. You hear it? Hear where the pauses took place? Did you hear where instrumentation cut out so other voices could stand strong because that's what was carrying the melody at the time? You see, rest isn't a break from the music, the rest is the music. And just as rest is crucial in the framework of musical masterpieces like what we just listened to, we are designed to rest. God created us in order to take moments of pause, to breathe, to get a breath of fresh air, and to reset. And that idea is actually very countercultural to the world that we live in right now. The world that we live in actually demands that we go faster, we try harder, we achieve more. But the Bible calls us to be holy as our God is holy. It calls us to be who we were created to be in community with each other. The reason why is because there are moments where you are supposed to pause and the people around you can pick up the slack and carry the weight, to be still and know that God is God. So today we're kicking off just a simple 2-week series because here's what I know to be true. The fall comes around, and this is actually when we get busier. Kids are back in school. Teachers are back into their rhythm of being in school and teaching lessons. For me personally, this is kind of where I get a little bit of a breath of fresh air because now the kids aren't at home all the time. But an all new season of busyness kicks off for me because while we get ready to launch 2 services next week, the reality is quickly showing up after that is a 1-year celebration, and quickly after that is Christmas, and then quickly after that is Easter. This is where my brain's at, all right? Just so you know. I'm already in 2027, just so you know. But we're kicking off the series, Rest and Reset. Rest meaning for us to rest according to God's design and looking at the purpose behind that. And then to reset, which we're going to look at next week, which is to restructure the priorities in our life that allow us to settle into the rest that God wants for every single one of us. Now, there is this misconception when it comes to the idea of rest, and the misconception is that rest is simply a suggestion, when in reality, it's actually a command from God. In Exodus chapter 20, we get the 10 Commandments. The Israelites have been freed from their slavery in Egypt that they've been in for 400 years, living in a polytheistic environment where they have been driven to work day and night. And now, after they have been freed and they're at Mount Sinai, they're with God, the very first thing that God does with his people is he gives them these commandments, these list of rules on how to relate, how they, as God's people, are to relate to him, and then how they are to relate to each other. And smack dab in the middle of these 10 commandments that God gives, one of those commands, number 4, it's actually in God's top 5, is to rest and to remember the Sabbath. If you got your Bibles with you, you can open up to Exodus chapter 20, looking at verse 8. We'll have the passage up on the screen as well. But here we go. The 4th commandment that God gives his people, starting verse 8, it says this. It says, "Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for you to do ordinary work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the 7th day he rested. And that's why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy." The spiritual practice of rest, again, it's not just within God's top 10, it's in God's top 5. And so my question for you this morning is, how are you doing at resting? Do it well? Not at all? You're sitting there going, my sleep was awful last night. Forbes did a study back a year ago in 2025 and found that in the United States culture alone, about 66 to 72% of people are facing burnout right now. That's high. In fact, they found that within that percentage, 66 proclaimed that they did not have a healthy work-life balance. Again, we live in a culture, strive, do more, work harder, achieve more. Because of COVID, remote working has been on the rise. A lot of people, when they're applying for new jobs, they're actually looking for this opportunity to work remotely. The same study found that 70%, 72% of the people who work remote jobs are more burnt out than those who go into the office every single day. The reason being is that people have found that they don't know how to establish healthy boundaries of when work stops and life begins at home. Why? Because that's your office. It's hard to just simply turn off the computer and shut it down. They found that people who establish a place within the household where this is where work can be done have a little bit of a healthier balance, but in most cases, the whole area is your workspace. There is no time where work stops and family life begins. Generationally, they have found that Gen Z and millennials are the most burnt out generation of all time. Hey, tired. Um, the reason being behind that was because, again, like my generation is growing up in this time where we were told, I've always used this as the example. I had a dad that told me to be the best and a mom that told me to do the best I can. The word that stood out in both of those situations was best. Work hard, be the best. Um, Now, this isn't just work related, though, because work burnout is one thing, but at the end of the day, you still have to go home and you still have family, you still have kids' activities that are going on. So the idea of being able to pause even for a second seems like something that our world just doesn't allow us or invite us into. And yet, it's exactly what God calls us to do. So what are the signs of burnout? In case you were wondering, like how would you know if you're somebody that is heading towards burnout? Well, the first indication would be a buddy of mine. His name's Alan Briggs. He talks about this a lot. He says if you're starting to feel burnout, you're way past burnout. You're well deep into it. And so, signs of burnout. One would be mental health. So people who are burnt out have a high anxiety level and high depression level. It has a physical impact. It's heart problems, weak immune systems, and metabolic changes to the body. It's behavioral and social. People who are experiencing high levels of burnout have addiction to substances. People who are experiencing high levels of burnout tend to be a little bit more reserved and recluse. They don't want to spend time with people because they don't have the energy in order to people that day. And what's fascinating about that is when you really think about it, doesn't that sound like our culture? Health problems, whether it be mental or physical. We don't spend time with each other anymore. I call it a garage door society. You're able to leave out of your garage in the morning to go to work, and you're able to park back in your garage at the end of the day where you don't have to interact with your neighbors. And you can just be to yourself doing what it is that you want to do. So the dangers of not following God's command clearly are very, very real and very, very dangerous. So why do we need to rest? If you're taking notes, you can write down this point. God created us with limits. God created us with limitations. Genesis 1:27, it tells us that we were created in God's image. We are the most unique thing in all of creation. And of everything that God created, we are the most unique because we are made in his image. And that is a pretty fascinating thing, really, when you think about it. A couple of weeks ago, we had the opportunity to take our kids to the Shedd Aquarium down in Chicago. And then a couple of days later, we went to the Milwaukee Zoo. And when you really think about all the different animals that God created, it's really pretty interesting that we are the most unique because there are some fascinating creatures that God created. And yet, in all of his creation, we're the ones made in his image, and we're the ones that are uniquely designed in that way. And God designed us to rest. And yet, while we are made in God's likeness, we ourselves are not God. We have those limitations. In fact, Psalm 46:10 reminds us on a regular basis that we are to be still and to know that God is God. Um, Back in January, February, we did a class called Marksman. Any marksmen in the room? All right, let's try this out. Be still and know that I am God. Who is God? Not me. That's right. It's the reminder and the indication that God is the one who is in control and that we don't have to be. We get this opportunity to be still. And if we think about it, we've all tried to play God in our own lives, right? Whether that is chasing after the next dollar, the next promotion, or the next gadget or toy. And yet, what we find is that no matter how hard we strive in this life in order to achieve the life that it is that we want, what we tend to find is that we burn out. We get tired, right? Like we were not designed to be the Energizer Bunny. Can't just keep going, just keep going. We weren't designed to be like Dory, just keep swimming, swimming. If we do that, we'll literally lead ourselves to a point of death because we were created with limitations. We have limitations because we were created with those limits, and because we live in a sinful, fallen, broken world, the brokenness in this world actually amplifies our limitations as well. So the invite is for us to remember that God is God and we are not. God created us with these limitations because it's actually an invitation for us to rely on Him, to allow Him to do what only God can do, and let us be okay with who it is that we were created to be. And one of the examples that God gave us in how to be holy as He is holy was actually this practice of resting. In Genesis chapter 2, verse up on the screen, it reads this way. It says, "So the creation of the heavens and the earth and everything in them was completed. And on the seventh day, God had finished His work of creation. So He rested from all of His work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy because it was the day when He rested from all of His work of creation." So if you're taking notes, you can write this down. Rest is something that we receive, not something that we earn. Rest is something that we receive, not something that we earn. The truth is that God establishing the Sabbath and giving the example of resting is a gift to us. Have you ever thought about that? The idea that this God that you worship, the God who created everything, the God who holds the whole world in His hands, found time to pause, take a breath, to rest. That's the example that He gives us. I heard a pastor say one time he had been doing ministry for, I think it was close to 15 years at this point in time, and he was always saving up his vacation days. And he's like, at some point in time, I'm going to be able to use these, and I'm going to stockpile them and take a really good long rest, a well-deserved rest. And a pastor in his life came to him and said, "What's the point of stockpiling? Like, what are you hoping to achieve out of this? Because the same Bible that you're teaching from calls us to rest. And yet you think that your obligation and you think that the goal is to save up as many rest days as possible." He asked him, "Do you think that you're better than God, that you don't have to rest?" That's the invitation to us, that we get to rest, because as we try to be holy as our God is holy, one of those aspects is our God rested. We get to do that. That's what He invites us into. But nothing is a gift until it's received. Until that point, it's simply a good idea. And in this topsy-turvy world that we live in, we think that once we have completed the list of items that we have to get done, then we can finally rest. Anybody resonate with that? That once the checklist is done, finally, now is the point that I get to, because the checklist is done, because the honey to-do list is done, because the work assignments are done, now I can finally take that breath and I can sit back and relax. I don't know if any of you have found this to be true. This tends to be true in my life, where there's so many things that continue to get stockpiled on my to-do list that there are the let's call them the less important things in my priority list that they get forgot about. And they just kind of fall to the wayside. And I continue to add on these important things. And I'll get to this point where I'm feeling very accomplished because I got the important things done. And I'm thinking, okay, now I can kind of hit the cruise control for a second and I can chill out. But what I've also found is every time that I get the important things done, the list that has been building up underneath kind of rises to the surface. And where I would like to sit back and relax, all of a sudden my mind goes to, oh yeah, I've been needing to do that. Oh yeah, I need to do that. Again, that's the world that we live in, this constant to-do list that gets placed on our shoulders, or this feeling that we have to do things. So the truth is that nothing is ever finished. The to-do list and the tasks are always going to grow. There's always the next thing to build. There's always the next project that needs to be done. We're in the middle of doing a whole bunch of projects at our house right now, and we were standing out in the front yard, and I was just like, I know what my project is for next year. It's just, it continues to grow. There's always something else. There's always more that needs to be done, and this is why we cannot earn rest, but we have to receive it as the gift that God has given us. That we can receive rest as a gift, that we can pause and be still and know that the world is going to keep spinning and things are still going to get done. Why? Because it's the example that God has given us. So the question then comes, what is the proper order for when we should rest? Do we rest when the tasks are done, or do we rest beforehand? At the end of each week, most people equate the Sabbath to Sunday. This is this is in the Christian culture, in the Jewish world, this would be the Sunday. The Sunday would be the Sabbath, or Saturday would be the Sabbath. This is when we're supposed to do absolutely nothing and take a pause, take a rest. I still remember the day when grocery stores would be shut down on Sundays. I still remember the days when there was no such thing as sporting activities for youth done on Sundays. That's just not the case anymore, is it? Everything is open. And because your kid is going to be the next great baseball or football star, you got to make sure that they're practicing on Sunday, right? I get it. I understand. But can any day be a day that you take a break? Absolutely, it can. First thing that I think that is important that we have to acknowledge that whenever you do decide it is going to be the day that you rest, that you don't do it as an obligation to the Lord, but you do it from a place of relational aspect. Like you can turn resting into a task to be done rather than it being the gift that you receive. That in order for me to appease the Lord, in order to have him to have a smile when he looks upon me, let me check mark the box. I got my rest in today. Or I got my rest in this week. It's not about that. It's not about check marking the box so you can check mark your box on your way into heaven. It's the you understand that God is still God. That you could be still. If we follow the example that we see here in Genesis, it says that God rested on the seventh day, that he worked for 6 full days, creating everything that we get to experience in this creation, and then God rested. So if we're going to be holy as our God is holy, then should the seventh day of the week be when we rest? Sure, could be. But there is something that is very fascinating about the creation story. Because it said that God rested on the seventh day. You know who he created on the sixth day? He created Adam, created mankind. So, yes, the rest day for God was on the seventh day. But the first full day of creation for mankind was a day of rest. Before any task was to be done, God created mankind and simply said, we're resting today. Be with me. I want to be with you. The true biblical idea behind rest is not that we get to a place where we work so hard and then we can rest, but the true biblical idea of rest is that we actually get to work from a place of rest. And I hope that is encouraging and a breath of fresh air for you, that as you continue to strive hard and you continue to achieve all the things that you want to, and man, go ahead, keep doing it. I'm not saying don't work hard. There is a godlike character in being a hard worker. But can I encourage you, work from rest, not to rest. Because if it's about check marking the box and if it's about accomplishing the tasks that need to get done, I don't think that that point of rest is ever going to come. And you end up becoming another one of the statistics of people who are heading towards burnout. So what does it mean to rest? Rest is not just an idea of doing nothing. It's not binge watching your favorite Netflix show for the 100th time. It's not just laying around scrolling on your phone, doom scrolling, if you will. And it's not just simply not doing anything. There's actually supposed to be intentionality to this idea of rest. Rest is being in the presence of God. Rest is giving your body a chance to recharge. Rest is focusing your mind on the things of heaven. And rest is doing the things that you love to do and acknowledging that God has given you the passions for those things. So resting for you might look different than the person that you're sitting next to. Resting for you could be, God's given me a passion for fishing. So on my rest day, I'm going to grab the fishing pole. I'm going to head out to the pond, the lake, the river, the boat, whatever it is. And I'm just going to spend some one-on-one time with the Lord with the fishing line in the water. Resting for you might be baking, because that's the passion that God's given you. And so as you're baking and you're kneading and you're doing all those things that I can never do because everybody would have horrible tasting cookies if I did baking. But it's this acknowledgement of God's given me this passion. God's given me this gift. And it's being in his presence and saying, God, thank you for this. Thank you that you've given me this passion, this ability in order to pause, to reflect on your goodness. That this is a point where I don't have to continue striving for anything, but I get to simply just be. Resting for you may just be simply having a good cup of coffee at a coffee shop or someplace in your house where you can just settle down, pulling up a really good book, and just being present with the Lord. For me, one of my favorite things to do, a gift that I got for Father's Day a few years ago, I love just being in nature, being outside. Those moments where I get the opportunity to do it, I absolutely love it. So Melissa bought me a hammock that I'm able to have set up that's just underneath our tree in the backyard. And I get to just lay in it from time to time and just relax, just be in the presence of the Lord. It's a reminder that God is God and that we are not. That's that invitation for us to be still. And this is why it's so important to know God as a very good shepherd. Because in Psalm 23 tells us that the good shepherd in our life knows when to drive us, but the good shepherd also knows when it's the time to lead us into the green pastures and beside still waters so we can rest. Mark chapter 2, Jesus gets into a conversation with the religious elite at the time. Basically, what's happening is it's the Sabbath day, and him and his disciples, they're caravanning, they're moving along, and in the process, they come across a grain field, and they take a piece of grain, and they're harvesting it, which was a no-no in those days. You don't do any kind of work, as what was read in Exodus. And so the religious elite see this taking place, and they're pretty much rebuking Jesus and his disciples and saying, Jesus, tell your disciples that what they're doing is unlawful according to the law of Moses, that they're breaking a command. Not just any command, Jesus. They're breaking a top 5 command of God by not Sabbathing. They're working on this day. And Jesus says this in Mark chapter 2, verse 27. He said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people and not the people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. Get it? They understood. The religious elite, they understood. They got it. Like, this is a command from the Lord. And it's really it's really easy to be religious, to be pharisaical about God's commands. But Jesus reminded them, Sabbath was not made for you to uphold the requirement of Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for you to rest in it. It wasn't supposed to be an obligation thing. It wasn't supposed to be another task that is to be done in order for you to appease God. The Sabbath was created so you can rest and be holy just as your God is holy. Which brings us to our last point. Taking notes. Rest reminds us that God is in control. I think our biggest worry about stopping is, what if the work continues to pile up? I get it. I'm right there with you. What if there's an emergency? What if I if I don't do this now, what future problems are going to arise because I didn't get this task done first? I totally get it. But if we're going to be people that reflect God's character to the world around us, then we also have to be people that simply sit there and go, I do trust God. I trust God in all aspects of everything of my life. In my work, in my family, in my finances, in my health, that I can trust God that, yes, God, I believe so much in this command that you've given us to rest that I can rest first, and that you will then give me the energy and the time that I need in order to get those tasks done. That in moments of emergency, somebody's urgency is not my emergency, or somebody's emergency is not my urgency. I think that's one of the hardest parts about being a pastor, if I were to be completely honest with you, is a pastor is called to be a shepherd. And there are many times that people are in need of a shepherd. They need somebody who can care for them, and life happens, and an emergency comes up. And a pastor's phone is blowing up all the time. And I so desperately want to be there for every single person, for every single one of you. But if I'm going to be the best version, the best pastor that I possibly can be, there are times that the phone has to be off. There has to be moments where if I'm being a good pastor, to be honest with you, if I'm being a good pastor, there are many of you that you have a gifting of mercy, you have a gifting of shepherd, being a shepherd. That if I was being a good pastor, in moments of emergency, this is where you shine because it's a gift that God's given you. That I can sit there and say, I can't make it right now, but I know somebody who will be there, snap of the fingers, pray for you, and to be on your side, and whatever it is that you need. It's this understanding, if we're going to rest, is understanding that God's got it. God's in control. God cares more about every single one of you, sorry to tell you this, than I ever can or ever will. And so he's going to put people in your lives. This is the reason why, as Melissa was talking about earlier, our community interest meeting. This is the reason why communities are so important, is that you would have the people that can carry each other's burdens. That when life does happen, the emergencies do happen, even at 3 o'clock in the morning, you've got the people that you can reach out to. Because you need rest. I need rest. Why? Because God commands us to do it. The resting in the way that God calls us to do it means that the emails can wait. It means that the grass can go ahead and grow one more day. Okay. It means that the tasks can be left undone. Resting is hard to do. I get it. It is for me. But the world keeps spinning, and God is still God. So here's my challenge for you, a homework assignment this week, if you choose to accept it, as we get ready to talk about resetting our priorities next week. Practice stopping. Find a moment, a day this upcoming week, or find moments within your day that you can just stop. And it's not stopping for the sake of just not doing anything, but it's stopping to be in the presence of the Lord, the person who cares for you the most, the person that he wants to be your refuge. He wants to be your strength. He wants to be your fortress. He wants you to be able to trust and believe in him and lean on him because he's able and willing to carry it all. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to repeat this. Marksman, you guys already did it. Be still and know that I am God. Who's God? Now everybody else. Who is God? Who is God? Who is God? Let him be God this week and rest in the way that he has called you to rest. Let's pray. Father, we love you so much. Father, we thank you so much that you have given us a command to rest. And it's not a command that we have to check mark the box as part of a task that needs to be done, but it's actually a command. It's more of an invitation of a gift that you are offering us. And God, again, a gift is only a gift once it's received. Until then, it's just a good idea. And so, God, I pray for every single one of us in this room that we would take up that challenge this week, that we would take up the homework assignment, that we would just stop. We would just stop and be in your presence. That God, we would take the intentional time to be with you. That when those tasks are building up and we're starting to freak out about it and we don't know where the time's going to be in order to get this done, and we got to get over here to this assignment, to this appointment, we got to get this task done, whatever it is, God, maybe when we're starting to freak out and we feel like we're spiraling out of control, God, maybe that would be the moment that, God, you would just remind us to take up the assignment to stop. Just be with you, the God who is for us and not against us. But we do live in a topsy-turvy world. We do live in a world that talks about be your own God, make your own way. Your word tells us time and time again, still and know that you're God. Who's God? Not me. So help me to trust you more so I can rest the way that you have called me, called us all to rest. Lift us all up in Jesus' name.